Hello guys, hope all of you are doing great. In this part of the video, I'll be telling you a very specific way of writing Python functions. And when you write Python functions in that specific way, then these functions are called as lambda functions. They are also known as anonymous functions. In this short video, I'll be telling you everything about lambda functions, and also I'll be showing you examples or use cases where people prefer to use lambda functions. And after seeing which, you will also start using lambda functions in your programs. Okay, then let's begin today's part. I said you lambda functions are a specific way of writing Python functions. So from there, one thing should be clear in your mind, that lambda functions are nothing but Python functions only. Okay, now then where they are different. Okay, let me show you some examples from where things will be very much clear to you. Let's first start with these normal Python functions. Say for example, I write a function f1 and there I pass two arguments. I mean, that function takes two inputs, and let's say that function returns the product of a and b, and you have to write return a multiplied by b. Now, this is a definition of function, right? I mean, we have to, if we want to execute that function, we have to call it. Let's call this function f1 with some value, say 2, 3, and we know that this function is going to return us some value. So let's store the value in n and then print the value on the screen just to test the function, whether it is working fine or not, okay? Okay, let's see, the output should be 6. Yes, right, the output is 6. Now see, one specific point here you note about this function, that this function contains, this f1 contains only one instruction or one statement in its body, one expression in its body. Now, whenever a Python function contains only one expression, then you can write that Python function in as a lambda function. Got it? Okay, now what I mean by it, don't worry, things will make more and more sense as you proceed further, don't worry. Now what I said you that if a Python function contains only one expression, then you can write that function as a lambda function. First, let's see how we can write the equivalent lambda function for this f1. Okay, so for that reason, first thing that you have to do is you have to make use of this keyword lambda, L-A-M-B-D-A. Lambda is a keyword, okay, that says that whatever I'm going to write next, everything should be considered as a lambda function. Okay, lambda. And then what you have to do is, you see, we are going to write the equivalent lambda function for f1. So the next thing that you have to write here is what are the inputs this function will take. Okay, this function takes two inputs, a and b, a comma b. Okay, these inputs are separated by commas. But one thing you see here, I skipped the name of the function. I didn't give any name to the function. Okay, lambda functions usually they do not have any names. Okay, and that's why these functions are called as anonymous functions. They do not have any names of their own by default. That's why these are anonymous functions. Okay, now I'm writing a lambda function that takes two inputs, a and b, and what we want to do in the body of the function, we want to return the product of these two inputs, a comma b. So what we'll be doing is we'll be simply writing here a multiplied by b. Note here, I didn't write here return a multiplied by b. Simply I wrote a multiplied by b. So from here, one thing should be clear in your mind, that whatever you write, whatever the expression that you write here you write, that the result of that expression will be returned automatically. The returning thing is automatic. Okay, it will always return something. And what is that something? Whatever it is the result of the expression that you wrote here, that thing will be returned from wherever you're calling the function. Clear? Okay, and another thing you see here, I said you cannot write more than one statement here, more than one expression here. That is, say for example, you might be thinking, okay, I'm writing lambda a multiplied by b tab, and then I want to write, say, a is equal to 10 or something like that. No, that thing is not possible. As I said, no, if a function contains only one expression, then only you can write that function as lambda function. If it contains more than one expression, then you have to go with this this normal definition of functions. I mean, normal way you have to take. Okay, you cannot take this shorthand notation of writing functions. You see, lambda functions are nothing but a shorthand notation of writing functions that contains only one expression. Clear? Okay, up to this point, you just say clear. Okay, anyhow, we are going to learn more about it. Okay, there are a few more things. Okay, now I have written here a function, a lambda function that takes two input and it returns the product of those two inputs. And now suppose now that this is your definition, we know about functions, right? First we define the body of the function, or first we define the function, that is we create the formula or the prototype or the what do you call that, whatever, the blueprint or whatever, no, and then we call that function. Similarly here also, I mean, this is the definition of the lambda function. Then how we can call it? If we want to call a function, I mean, why do we define a function? Because we want to call the function, isn't it? We want to use the function. So I have written here only a lambda function, sort of the definition of the function. Then how do I call this function? So if you want to call this function, that there are ways that you can do it, since it doesn't have any name right now, right? So without a name, how can you call a function? One thing is that, one special thing about lambda function is that at the time of the definition itself, like wherever you are defining the function, that point itself you can call the function. That's a sort of superpower of these lambda functions. You cannot do that thing with normal definition or normal way of doing function things. Okay, now let's see immediately how we can call that function. This is our definition and I want to call this function. So what I'll be doing is I'll be putting this bracket around this lambda function definition, and then what I'll be doing is, okay, I'll be passing the inputs to the function as a comma b. See here, the body, the entire definition I'm using sort of as a name of the function. See here, what am I doing here is, how do I call this function? Normal function, I write the name of the function, and then within these open and closing parentheses, I write the inputs to the function. Same thing more or less I did here, like lambda. This entire thing is sort of my, here this f1 is actually replaced by this entire thing, the definition of the function. And then I want to pass here inputs, not a comma b. I want to pass here inputs, say for example 2 comma 3. Okay, so this function, it means what? We want to execute this function with this input 2 and 3. And what is our predicted output? It will return us 2 multiplied by 3. So it means what? The execution of this function will return us a value. The way this function call returns a value, and we can store the value in a variable, the same way we can do here also. Like say for example, n is equal to this thing. Okay, so whenever now you see something like this in a Python program, you should interpret it in this way. Okay, it's a function. Basically from here to here, it's a function that takes 2 input and that returns the product of those 2 inputs. Okay, whatever it is, it could be a plus b also. It means that time it will return the sum of those 2 numbers or anything. Okay, so whatever you write here, that thing will be returned, and whatever you write here, those will be the inputs. Okay, and then you are calling this function. See here, you are calling this lambda function on this input 2 and 3. It means 2 will go to a, 3 will go to b. So ultimately it will return 2 multiplied by 3, 6, and that 6 you are storing it in a variable n. So that 6 will be stored in n. So if you want, you can check it by printing the value of n on the screen, right? And as expected, it should give you a 6. It's giving you a 6. Okay, but that is not the only one way of calling a lambda function. I said you, lambda functions by default, they do not have any name. But if you want, you can assign it a name, please, in some way. Okay, now let's see how we can assign a name to a lambda function. Okay, for that reason, what I'll do is I'll write another code, and let me write here another lambda function. Okay, again, I'm telling you my philosophy. More and more you see examples, more and more your brain will absorb the thing. And for that reason, instead of copying, I'm writing another lambda function here. Okay, lambda, I'm writing another lambda function that takes 2 inputs, say a comma. Let me show you an example that takes 3 inputs. Okay, so here basically what am I doing is I'm writing a lambda function that takes 3 inputs, a, b, and c. And what I want to do with these inputs, say for example, I want to return the sum of all these 3 inputs, a, b, and c. That's all. See here again, notice I didn't write here return. Okay, return is implicit. That is, automatically it will execute this expression. Whatever it is the result of that expression, that thing will be returned as a result of the function execution. Okay, and then now this time we can call this function. If I want, we can call this function in this way, lambda this, and say for example 1 comma 2 comma 3, and then we can directly print the result. Okay, print the result on the screen. So it will give us 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 6 again. Yes, again 6. Okay, but this time we don't want to call the function in this way, so I'll get rid of this print statement. I'll get rid of this part here. Okay, so again we are back. This is our lambda function, and what we want to do is we want to give it a name. So how we can give it a name? Say what we can do is we can actually store, say this lambda function in a variable. Okay, we can sort of like the way you store, say for example, when you have to store 30 in a variable, how do you do it? You write 30 and you write a variable name, and then you use this assignment operator to store 30 in that variable. The same thing you can do. I mean, these lambda functions, then that thing you are storing in a variable f2. Okay, and then what you can do is, as soon as you do that, using f2, now you can call the lambda function. Say f2, and then how many inputs it takes? Say 1, 2, 3. So this will return you a value. You can store the value, return value in a variable, and then you can print it. Okay, let's see the output here. 6, or if I make it 33, maybe it is 66 or something. 36. Okay, no problem. I'm sorry. Okay, done. I guess people got the point here, right? So these are the two different ways that you can call a lambda function: at the time of the definition itself, or that is wherever you are defining the function, and or what you can do is you can store the lambda function in a variable, and then using the name of the variable you can call the function. And that's why, see here, by default lambda functions do not have any name, and that's why these are called as anonymous functions. And lambda functions are nothing but their normal function. They are just writing they're just a shorthand notation of writing one statement or one expression functions in Python. Clear? Okay, done. And if you have understood up to this point, then you people have understood what are lambda functions and how do you write it, and how to use them actually. Done. Now, okay, I mean, one advantage is, I mean, why we need lambda functions? Because they are, as I said, no, they are shorthand notation. As a programmer, you would like to, type as less as possible. And if you want to stay in the community, when I say community, means the community of Python programmers, to be uniform, you should know these things actually. You can write, I mean, you can always manage with these normal function definitions. That's okay, fine. If you never use lambda functions, then also fine. I mean, you can always manage the thing without lambda functions. Because see here, one thing you should note here, that lambda functions, they do not give you another dimension of power. They do not give you another dimension of power. Okay, what rather they do is like they enhance the same direction. I mean, whatever these functions can do, they enhance the same thing. They do not give you another dimension there. Are you getting what am I trying to say you? Yes. So it means you do not get some extra power when you use lambda functions. Whatever you can do using lambda functions, everything are doable using normal functions. But then also you should use lambda function, as I said, in a Python community. When you write code or when you are seeing others code, you will be seeing people using lambda functions. And if you know lambda functions, then only when you read others program, they will make sense. Otherwise, you will always be thinking, I mean, what exactly this thing is. So for that reason, you just write a few programs, try to write a few programs using lambda functions, and your brain will automatically capture those patterns, and whenever next time it sees, it will automatically make sense to you. And also whenever it sees situations where you can use a lambda function, automatically it will suggest you internally, okay, at this point you should use a lambda function, I guess. Okay. Having said so, but then also let me give you some real use case or examples, as I promised at the beginning, of these lambda functions. Okay, these lambda functions are like one place where these lambda functions are very commonly used is as an input. Whenever you have to pass a function as an input to another function, then people prefer using lambda functions if those functions happen to be one expression functions. Let me show you some examples. In Python, you will find lots of inbuilt functions that takes another function as an input. And just for reference, when a function takes input as when a function takes other functions as input, then these functions are called as higher order functions. I'll be covering the topic, I'll be explaining you about, I'll be telling you more about higher order functions, at least a few inbuilt higher order functions, very commonly used higher order functions in Python, in my coming videos. But for today's video, what I'll be showing you is, I'll be showing you one very common example. Okay, let's see this thing and you'll appreciate it actually. Okay, let's see this thing. Let me write here a code. Say for example, you consider now, L is a list. Okay, L is a list, and there I store a few strings. Say some names. Say for example, Arnisha. I don't know from where that name came. And say for example, Ram, and some English words, some words maybe. Say for example, flower, or maybe a small word, maybe cat, or a big word, what it could be, elephant, ELEPHENT, maybe a big word, or that's all. I mean, okay, let me store another name, say for example, Martin. Okay, I created here a list that contains a few English words, and what we want to do is we want to sort the list. Sorting the list is not a problem in Python, right? I mean, you know already, say how to sort a list. So on that list object, you can call this inbuilt sort function here. I mean, this function, the function, sort function of list, okay, list objects. So here, if you simply write l.sort, basically what it will do is it will sort this list by default from in ascending order alphabetically. Let's see the output here first. Okay, if you want to see the output, you have to print L, print the list. Okay, here also we print the list, print L, that is before sorting it will print the list, after sorting also it will print the list. See the difference first. Okay, before sorting the list is the way we wrote, and after sorting they are in alphabetical order, like now this and this and this. Now you might be immediately saying no, this is not in alphabetical order because this cat is coming at the end. Although I said alphabetical order, not in alphabetical order, basically it sorts the list based on their ASCII values. Like these, the ASCII value of C is much higher than the ASCII value of capital E or capital F. Okay, so for that reason this is happening. But just to avoid the confusion, let me replace this cat by cat, lower uppercase cat. That will not make any difference with to make my point. My point is something else. Okay, I'll be coming to that point also. I'll address that point, but don't worry for the time being. So here you can see now the list is more or less sorted order. Okay, done. Up to this point you know the things. And also now you see here the sort function takes two inputs. One is the input reverse. Okay, that is, suppose you want to now sort the list in reverse order, that is not in ascending order, maybe in descending order, that is Z will come first, A will come at the end. In that case, that flexibility is there. What you can do is, instead of calling this sort function in this way, you'll be writing reverse is equal to true, not that way. Reverse is equal to true, like that. And then if I execute this function, you'll be seeing that the outputs are in sort of reverse order: A, B, C, E, F, M, and R. That is from R to A. Clear, right? Now see, this input it gives you some flexibility. I mean, the same sort function will be executed, but some control is there still as a user of that function. I mean, you can still do things there. I mean, sometimes in forward order, sometimes in backward order, you are allowed to sort a list of strings, or basically a list of anything. Okay, they could be easily numbers. But there is another input this sort function take, and that is my important point here. Now suppose what you want to do is, you don't want to sort the list in alphabetical order or in ASCII order, whatever you want to think of. We don't want to sort it like, R should come first, A should come end. What rather we want to do is, we want to sort the list based on the length of the string. Okay, so it means if it has 3 characters, it should come first. If it has 10 characters, it should come at the end. Smallest to largest, or maybe largest to smallest, because that flexibility, that thing you can manage always by writing reverse equal to true or reverse equal to false. By default, reverse is equal to false. Okay, so But our point is that we want to sort the list not by their ASCII values, rather by the length of the string. So how do we manage that thing? I mean, do we have to write? Yes, one way is that yes, you can write your own sort mechanism or own sort function and things will be done. But you don't need to do all this, hard work again, because sort function is already written, right? Now, how do you do that then without rewriting the sort function? And that's where the concept of passing a function as an input to another function comes. Okay. Let me show you an example how we can actually sort this list without actually how we can sort the list based on these number of characters which are present there in the list in a particular string. So for that reason, what you can do is, what I'll do is I'll first define here, just above this block of code, I'll define here a function, and let me define a function and let's say the function is f1 that takes only one input, say a, and we'll assume that the input is a string and it returns us the length of the string. So how do you find the length? You can simply call that len function and then a. Okay, so if we want to use this function, then how do you do it? Say for example, if I write now print what is the an f1 and what is the length of the string, say ram, so it will give you 3. Okay, now what we want to do is, before actually executing the sort function, first thing is we want to convert all these strings to, or we want to replace all these strings by their lengths. And if it is the case, then when the sort function sorts the list, basically it will be sorting the lengths of the string. And as a result, when you see the output, you'll be feeling like, okay, now the list is sorted based on their lengths. If it is the case, then how we can tell a Python interpreter to use this particular function to convert all these strings or to replace all these strings before actually executing the sort function? That is doable because of these another input that this sort function takes. And what is that another input that this sort function takes? This sort function takes another input whose name is key. Okay, whose name is key, K-E-Y, key. That's a name, right? What does that mean? That's a variable name which is there in the definition of the sort function, and there by default it is none. I mean, it doesn't execute any function. But if you want to execute a function on each and every element of the list, then what you can do is you can pass here that particular function. So here I want to execute this function f1 on each and every element of the list. See here, I'm not be writing any input here like this. Okay, so what rather I'm doing is I'm simply passing the name of the function. Automatically, what input these functions will receive? It will receive each and every element of the list. That is, automatically this function will be called for each and every element of the list. So first time it will be called f1 of Arnisha, f1 of Ram, f1 of Flower, and every time it executes that function, it actually returns the length of the function. So every element will be ultimately replaced by the lengths. Okay, and then the sort function will be executed, and as a result you will actually feel like the list is sorted based on the length of the strings. Let's execute this program and see the output. For time being, let me remove this reverse equal to true and let's do it. Now see, it's like length of the string RAM, CAT, FA, and a flower. Here we have 6, here we have 6, here we have 3, 7, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The length of the string. So just to make the thing more clear, let me store here a string that contains only one single character, and maybe that is Z, no problem, and that Z will come at the beginning. See, Z is coming at the beginning. Clear? We can sort the list now, you see, very easily with the help of this key feature. I mean, we can now see key is, right? It is the name of a variable. What we can store there? We can store there a function that takes only one input and that returns the length of the function, length of the given string. Okay, now see, since this function contains only one line, it means that we can write that function as a lambda function. So here what people will rather do is, instead of defining a function separately and then passing it to this key input, what people will prefer to do is they will simply do it here itself. I mean, they will not write the function separately, define the function separately, then it will pass. You can do that, no problem, but the thing is, most of the people they will prefer doing it in this way. lambda, lambda. I'm defining a lambda function that takes only one input and that returns the length of the string. So that executes this len function on that input a. That's all, and that's all. Now see here, it will give you exactly the same output as we got previously. Same thing. Clear? Okay. Done. So these are some use cases. So in as I said, no, there are like whenever you are using a higher order function, that is a function that takes input another function that takes another function as an input. So there, these lambda functions are potential candidate. I mean, we use lambda functions there heavily. You will see examples in the coming videos of three very commonly. I'll be telling you in the next video itself. I'll be discussing about map function, reduce function, and filter function. All these three are higher order Python inbuilt functions, and that is another reason that you should subscribe the channel, because as soon as I upload, you'll come to know about it. So please subscribe the channel. Okay. Okay, done. Now that's all. I mean, you can do the things this way. And just before finishing the video, let me give you another example. I mean, is it only like the length of the string that we can sort the list? No, not exactly. You can choose anything. You can now sort the list based on any criteria. Maybe we are like what we want to do. Say for example, we want to sort the list based on how many O's are there in the list. Okay. See, I have told you everything about lambda functions and all. That topic is sort of over. I'm just showing you some another example. If you want, you can stop the video here itself. But if you want to see some more fun, then you can continue for another 2-3 minutes. Okay, not a problem. Okay, let me show you one example where we'll be writing the same code. But this time what we'll be doing is we'll be sorting the list based on how many O's are there in the in a name. So here we have one O, so that should come first. They all have 0 O, so don't choose O. Let's choose A. Okay, how many A's are there? Here we have 2 A's, here we have 1 A. So Ram should come first, Arnisha should come at the end because it has 2 A's. Had there been, say for example, 4 A's, it should come at the last. There are no A's here. Z has 0 A's, so it should come at the beginning. So basically, how many A's are there? Based on that, we want to sort the list. Then how can we do this? Simple. Again, here we just have to change this function. Now, what function we are passing? What exactly it is that we want to execute on each and every element of the list, that we have to specify. And what exactly it is that we want to execute? So on each element, we just want to count. The number of A's. So what you can do is, on that input, this is count is a inbuilt string function. You can use it like that, string count, and it basically counts how many times that that particular substring occurs in a given string A, whatever this string is. Okay, so count, and then I want to count A. Okay, so okay, now let's see what is the output here. Here we don't have any A's. Here no A's. So basically all of them have 0 values. But here we have 1 A's. Don't you think that here we have 2 A's. Here we have only 1 A. This A, lowercase a. And then here we have 1 A. Here we have 1 A's, and here we have 5 A's. Okay, let's change this name Martin to have 2 A's. So Martin will be at this same place. Let's give an A to this Z. Immediately this Z will come. Let's give it 2 A's, and it will change its position to somewhere here. So how many A's are there? Based on that, we are sort of sorting. Okay, now before finishing this video, let me address this lowercase uppercase issue. Okay, so here this A is, as you can see here, although this Arnisha has 2 A's, but it is considering only this lowercase a. If you write here uppercase A and uppercase A, then obviously it will consider only uppercase A's, right? So one solution to that problem is that we can first convert everything to lowercase or everything to uppercase. So that way we can overcome that problem of case sensitivity. Okay, so it means what? First, this A is a string, and we want to convert that string everything to either lowercase or to uppercase. So let me convert it to everything to lowercase. A dot lower. This is an inbuilt string function we can call to convert that string to to lowercase. And then whatever it is the output of A dot lower, that will be a string again, and on that we'll be calling this function count of a. So this time Arnisha will be considered as having 2 a's. Okay, so it means what, this Ram should come first and then Arnisha should come, at least if it is working. See, Ram is coming here, then cat, and obviously after that Arnisha is coming. It means it is working, right? So even if now I write now here, I cannot write here capital A actually, because everything, as I said, no, it will be converted to lowercase, and then it will be working fine. Clear? Now using the same concept, now we can now sort a list irrespective of whether the strings are in lowercase or uppercase. What I mean is, that is an important example. As I said, no, lambda functions are over, and that is a small concept, right? We learned about lambda functions. They are shortened notation of writing one-line expression functions in Python, and one very common use case of lambda functions are whenever we have to pass functions as an input to another functions. That part is over. You have understood that part. But as a programmer, you need to know some more. Not knowing only about the tools are not enough. You need to actually know how to use those tools, and that is the important part. More and more you use, more and more you see, more and more you have experience, your brain will automatically start using those things. You don't have to, yes, I know, you don't have to mug up the things, right? Okay, let me now show you an example where lambda functions again we will be using, but our goal is this time, see here what my point is. Say for example, the same example here, let me take it, and these are some names, and we're printing it, we're sorting it, we're passing it. Say for the time being we don't pass any lambda functions here. This one is done, and then I'm sorting it. It is giving us the sorted list, but the thing is that here, okay, let me change this cat. Our initial problem was with this cat, right? I mean, this cat will now at the end, it will come at the end, but it should have come here. Like, the problem is happening because the case sensitivity of the sort function, it is case sensitive, and it is actually sorting the strings based on their ASCII values, not sort of what we understand as alphabets, right? So C, its ASCII value is 97, 98, 99, yes, 99, and this A's ASCII value is it starts from 65. Okay, so A, B, C, E will have some value around 70 or something, but C will have some value around 97, as I said. So obviously it's much bigger than E or F, like that. Understood? Okay, now our goal is we want to sort this list irrespective of their cases, right? That is, we want this cat to come ultimately at this point, even if they're written in lowercase. And how do we do it? We can use again here the input to this key function, the key value. Key is an input that takes another function as as an input. That is where you can store another function like here in this key input. And what function it is, you can write a separate function, then you can pass the name of the function there, or you can write a lambda function, because our function will be only one line expression. And what is that? Yes, what we want to do is we don't want to consider the cases. So what we'll be doing is, before actually calling the function, we'll be converting each and every element either to lowercase or to uppercase. That can be done very easily. We already have done it actually in one example. So we'll be writing a lambda function that takes only one input, and that input a dot maybe to upper, to lower, whatever we want to do it. Say to lower, so lower, lower is the function. So that's all. So it means before calling lambda, before calling the sort function, this particular function, it's a normal function, lambda function, whatever that way you have written, that's a different story. But this particular function will be executed on each and every element of the list. So that way, before actually calling sort, it will convert everything to lowercase. So if everything is in lowercase, then this cat will obviously come after A, B, or C, before F or before E even, right? So let's see the output. Here, in the first one is like the initial one. Here you see Arnisha, and then cat, and then elephant, then flower, and then Martin, and then Ram, and then Ja. Got it? Okay, that's all then for this part of the video. In the next part of the video, I will be discussing 3 inbuilt higher order function: map, filter, and reduce, which where again we'll be seeing using lambda functions. Okay, so as I said, that is another reason that you should subscribe to the channel. So please subscribe to the channel, share the video with your friends, and please like the video if you liked it. Okay guys, then see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.